Some gifts don't come wrapped in ribbons, they come wrapped in meaning. Sometimes it's not what's inside the box that matters, but what's hidden inside a memory. That day, a group of adopted children handed Jason Statham an old, worn-out jacket, and what he found in its pocket changed everything. Before we continue, to our returning viewers, thank you. Your support is what fuels us to bring these powerful stories to life. And if you're new here, we invite you to subscribe. With your help, we'll continue to share stories that inspire, challenge, and move hearts. And if this story touches you, please leave us a comment. Your words mean more than you know. Jason never liked birthdays. Not because of the candles or the songs or the way people tried too hard to make him smile, but because birthdays reminded him of all the people who weren't there to celebrate them anymore. This one was supposed to be quiet. Just him, a cup of black coffee, and the kind of silence that doesn't ask for company. But fate has a strange sense of humor, and that morning, silence didn't stay long. He was volunteering at a small foster home outside the city, a place most people forgot about, except the ones who needed it most. The kind of place where laughter had to work hard to echo through old walls. Jason showed up every week, not as the movie star, not as the fighter, but as the man who fixed squeaky doors, changed light bulbs, and made sure every kid had a pair of shoes that fit. That day, when he walked through the gate, something was different. The kids, a mix of bright eyes and tired smiles, were huddled together, whispering like they were hiding a secret too big for their little hands. "Morning troublemakers," Jason said, setting down a box of groceries. "What are you lot up to?" No one answered. Instead, the smallest one, a boy named Caleb, maybe 7, the kind who never let go of a stuffed dinosaur, stepped forward with something in his arms. It was a jacket. Old, brown, faded at the seams, the kind that had seen better years and worse weather. Caleb looked up and said, "It's for you." Jason blinked. "For me?" The boy nodded hard. "We all got it from the thrift shop down the road. Miss Evelyn helped us pick it." Behind him, the others started grinning. One of the older girls, Layla, spoke up. "We know you're always cold when you're fixing the pipes in the back shed. So, happy birthday, Mr. Jason." Jason froze for a second. He hadn't told anyone it was his birthday. He didn't even remember mentioning it to Evelyn, the head caretaker. But there it was, a jacket, worn but warm, and a dozen small hands reaching out to give it to him like it was treasure. He laughed, that quiet, stunned kind of laugh that starts in the chest. "You kids," he said softly, taking it from Caleb's tiny arms. "You shouldn't have." Layla smirked. "We didn't have to, we wanted to." Jason ran his hand along the fabric. It was soft, broken in, the kind of jacket that had stories stitched into its stitches. He slid it on, it fit surprisingly well. "Looks good on you," said one of the boys. "Feels good too," Jason replied, adjusting the collar. Then he paused. His fingers brushed something in the pocket. Something small, folded. He reached in and pulled it out, a crumpled piece of paper, yellowed with age. The edges were torn, like it had been hidden for years. Jason frowned. "This came with the jacket." Caleb shrugged. "Dunno, we didn't check the pockets. Why?" Jason didn't answer. He slowly unfolded the paper. There, written in faded ink, were 4 words, shaky but deliberate. "Find him, he's mine." The room went quiet, the kind of quiet that makes even the walls listen. Jason looked again. There was a small name scribbled underneath, a name barely legible through the smudges. Matthew, 1989. Miss Evelyn came over, brow furrowed. "What's that?" Jason handed her the note. "Was in the pocket." She squinted at it. Strange, maybe a mix-up at the thrift shop, happens sometimes. But Jason's eyes lingered on the note. Something about it didn't sit right. It wasn't just words on paper, it felt pleading. Like someone had written it in desperation, hoping it would one day be found. He looked at the kids all standing there, proud of their little gift, and forced a smile. "Well," he said, folding the paper carefully, "looks like this jacket's got a story of its own." Layla tilted her head. "A story?" Jason nodded. "Every old thing does. Sometimes we just have to listen close enough to hear it." The rest of the day went by in the kind of rhythm Jason loved, fixing leaky faucets, playing football in the yard, teaching the kids how to patch a tire. But his mind kept drifting back to that note. Find him. He's mine. That night after the kids had gone to bed, Jason sat on the porch, the jacket draped over his shoulders. The moonlight caught the edges of the paper as he unfolded it again. Find him, he's mine. Whose words were those? A mother's, a father's, a promise made too late. He sighed. Most people would have thrown it away, chalked it up to lost history. But Jason wasn't most people. He'd seen too much of what gets left behind when no one bothers to look. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "Evelyn," he said quietly when she picked up, "where exactly did the kids buy this jacket?" "Place called Turner's Thrift," she said, half asleep. "Why?" Jason glanced down at the jacket again. Just curious. But curiosity wasn't what kept him awake that night. It was something else, the voice in his head that wouldn't stop saying, "Find him." The next morning, Jason drove into town. Turner's Thrift was easy to miss, a narrow storefront wedged between a pawn shop and a bakery. The bell above the door jingled as he stepped inside. Behind the counter, an older woman looked up from her newspaper. "Help you find something." Jason held up the jacket. "Actually, this found me." She smiled politely. "Nice piece, vintage, maybe late 80s. You remember who brought it in?" She shook her head. "We get dozens every week. Why?" Jason hesitated. Then he unfolded the note and slid it across the counter. Her eyes scanned it, and for a brief second, just a flicker, something changed in her face. "Where'd you get this?" she asked, voice lower now. "From the pocket," Jason said. "The kids at the foster home bought it for me." She pressed her lips together. "That jacket was dropped off by a man last month. Quiet type. Didn't say much, just left a few old clothes and left. But that," she pointed at the paper, "that looks like it's been there a lot longer." Jason nodded slowly. "You got any record of who he was?" "Sorry," she said. "We don't take names for donations." Jason thanked her and turned to leave, but before he could step out, she said softly, "Wait. That name Matthew. There used to be a family in town, lost their boy around that time. Never found him." Jason froze. "You sure?" She nodded. "Pretty sure. It was a big deal back then. I was a kid myself, but everyone talked about it." Jason stepped outside, the morning sun washing over the street. The world went on around him, cars, chatter, life. But inside, that note burned like a spark in his pocket. He looked back at the thrift store window, where the reflection of the jacket stared back at him. This wasn't just a piece of clothing anymore. It was a message, one that had waited decades to be heard. And now it had found the one man stubborn enough to listen. The drive out of town was quiet, the kind of quiet that hums under your skin. Jason kept one hand on the wheel and the other resting on the jacket beside him. Every so often, his thumb brushed the pocket where the note was tucked. The words still echoed in his head. "Find him, he's mine." He'd read it so many times now the paper was starting to wear at the folds. Whoever wrote it didn't just scribble, they carved it, like they wanted the message to survive time itself. The road wound past farmland and old barns until the pavement gave way to gravel. Finally, he pulled up to a small house leaning against the years. Paint peeled from the shutters. A swing creaked in the front yard, moving on its own in the wind. According to the thrift store clerk, this was the last known address of the family who'd lost their boy, the Matthews. Jason knocked once. No answer. He was about to turn back when he heard movement inside, slow, hesitant footsteps. Then the door cracked open. An elderly woman stood there, wrapped in a shawl that looked as old as the house. Her eyes, cloudy but sharp beneath the years, studied him. "Yes, Mrs. Matthews." She nodded slowly. "Who's asking?" Jason held up the jacket. "My name's Jason. I think this might have belonged to someone in your family." Her gaze fell on the jacket, and for a second her breath caught. "Where did you get that?" Jason told her, the foster home, the kids, the thrift shop, the note. Every word. She didn't interrupt. Just listened, gripping the edge of the door like it was the only thing holding her steady. When he finished, she whispered, "You'd better come in." Inside, the house smelled like dust and time. Framed photos lined the mantel, faded, black and white. A younger couple holding a boy with bright eyes and a gap-toothed smile. "That's Matthew," she said softly, following his gaze. "My son." Jason nodded. "I'm sorry for your loss." She gave a small, sad smile. Loss is a funny word. You can't lose what never really left. He's still here, somewhere in this house, in these walls, and every morning I wake up and still expect to hear his laugh. Jason looked down at the photo again. How did he? She cut him off gently. We don't know. One day he went out to play, said he was going to see his friend down the street. He never made it. That was 1989. Jason reached into his pocket and placed the note on the table between them. This was in the jacket. Her hand trembled as she picked it up. When she saw the handwriting, her eyes filled. This is mine. Jason frowned. Yours. She nodded. I wrote it the week he went missing. I thought maybe someone would find his jacket and it would lead him home. She brushed her thumb over the words. I never thought anyone actually would. Jason sat back silent. The jacket on his lap suddenly felt heavier, not fabric anymore, but history. After a long pause, she whispered, my husband kept that jacket for years. Said one day we should give it away, let someone else use it. I couldn't. Not until after he passed. So you donated it recently? She shook her head. No, someone else must have. Maybe my nephew when he cleared the attic. Jason exhaled slowly. Do you mind if I keep it for a bit? I'll bring it back, I promise. Her eyes softened. You can keep it. Maybe it was meant to find you. He thanked her and left quietly. But as he reached the door, she called out, Mr. Jason. He turned. If you find anything else in that jacket, tell me, please. He nodded. You have my word. Back in his truck, Jason sat still for a long time. The jacket lay across the seat, the note beside it. He reached into the other pocket just in case. His fingers brushed against something stiff paper again, but smaller this time. He pulled it out carefully. It was a photograph creased down the middle. A boy, maybe 8, sitting on a bike. But behind him, in the corner of the photo, something caught Jason's attention, a man standing by a pickup truck. Half his face shadowed, but his hand rested on the bike seat, protective. On the back, written in the same shaky handwriting. Last day, 1989. Jason's jaw clenched. He took a photo of it with his phone and sent it to an old friend, a retired detective he knew from his earlier days. An hour later, the detective called. Where'd you get this, Jace? Found it, Jason said. Can you run the truck plate in the corner? There was silence, then a sigh. That plate's registered to a man named Harold Keene. Went missing in 1990. Never found him either. Jason stared at the road ahead. You thinking what I'm thinking? Yeah, the detective said. The boy wasn't kidnapped by a stranger. He might have been taken in. Jason hung up and gripped the steering wheel. The truth wasn't just hiding in that jacket, it was stitched into it. He spent the next 2 days tracing old records, visiting the thrift store again, talking to people who remembered the case. Each piece added to the puzzle. Harold Keene had been a drifter, ex-military, quiet, moved from town to town doing odd jobs. Some said he took in a kid around that time, raised him for a few years before disappearing. By the third night, Jason was back at the foster home. The kids were asleep, the halls dark except for the faint glow from the kitchen light. Evelyn sat at the table, sipping tea. Find anything? She asked. Jason nodded slowly. Yeah, enough to know that jacket didn't just find me. It found its way back to where it was meant to be, among kids who still have a chance. Evelyn smiled. So what'll you do with it? Jason looked down at the jacket draped over his arm. Keep it here. Maybe it'll remind them that no matter how lost you get, someone's always looking for you. He slipped it over the back of a chair, smoothing the sleeves out gently. Then he took out the photo and taped it to the wall beside the kitchen door. The boy's smile glowed faintly under the light. For a moment, Jason just stood there. The room was quiet, except for the steady rhythm of the ticking clock and the whisper of the jacket settling into place, like it had finally come home. The next morning, when the kids ran in for breakfast, Caleb tugged on the jacket hanging from the chair. Mr. Jason, is this yours? Jason smiled faintly. It was, but I think it belongs here now. Who's the boy in the picture? Layla asked. Jason crouched down beside her. Someone who got lost a long time ago, but because of all of you, he's finally been found. The kids nodded, not fully understanding, but maybe feeling it all the same. Outside, the sun rose over the foster home, lighting the old jacket like a halo. Jason stepped out onto the porch, coffee in hand, watching the light stretch across the yard. He thought about Matthew, about the mother who'd waited 30 years, and about how sometimes the universe doesn't forget, it just takes its time setting things right. He smiled to himself, because maybe some stories don't end with a fight or a fall. Maybe some end with a jacket, a note, and a promise finally kept. And somewhere, in the quiet spaces between the years, a boy's laughter found its way home again.